Hello friends and welcome to Haas's cheesy one gas immortal all-in guide. And I decided to divide this guide up into three portions. The first portion is going to be progression number 1. If you're a player below, let's say the Masters League, and you've never played this build before, I recommend you start with progression 1. And once you can successfully execute the build order in this form, I recommend you to change to progression 2, which I will explain after this first one. Now, if you're a more advanced player, be sure to skip ahead in the video and go to progression 2 immediately. With progression 1, we start very simple. A pylon on the low ground into a gateway on the low ground, and after the gateway, we scout across the map with our worker. Our gas gets taken at 17 supply as we chrono boost our probes the moment our pylon finishes up in the natural. We build our gateway and we chrono boost our probes. Simple as that. Now, as I mentioned before, this is going to be a one gas build order. And that means that it's important to pull into gas the moment the gas finishes up. And once we hit 20 supply, we want to get our nexus. We only send 2 workers into our gas. And then once our nexus starts, we got our cybernetic score. We scout with the probe, making sure nothing weird is going on. This is a build that you do against Zerg, not against any other race. My AI opponent happened to be Terran. Do not get confused by this, please. Cybernetic score goes down, and you send the probe that built the cybernetic score into your gas to fill it 3-3. It looks like it's 4 out of 3, but that's because I also sent the scouting probe into that gas for whatever reason. You start building workers and get your second pylon. This way you don't become supply blocked, which tends to be a very annoying thing if it does end up happening to you. Continue building workers as well and start rallying workers in towards your natural. It is not the most efficient way of doing things, but it makes life a lot easier if your workers are already rallied into your natural and they can start mining. You don't have to think about that anymore. The moment your gateway and your cybernetic score are finished, you start warp gate as well as a stalker immediately. Your stalker is going to be the only gateway unit you will be building before warp gate finishes. Keep the stalker at home and use it to deny an overlord or to kill any links that come to your side of the map. We're gonna be walling off pretty soon, so it doesn't matter all that much. After we build our stalker and our warp gate, the moment gas becomes available, we immediately start our robotics facility. Try to build it as close to the main base pylon as possible. This will allow for easier gateway placement later on in the game. The next move is important. We want to throw down 3 extra gateways, and we want to do that before the clock on the cybernetic score hits 54 out of 100. This allows us to warp in immediately the moment our warp gate finishes up. So here we go. 3 more gateways for a total of 4. Very simple, all of that. We continue building workers and not using any chrono boost whatsoever. Please note that we only used, I think, 1 chrono boost initially on the workers, and that pretty much is it. The moment our robotics facility finishes up, we start an immortal and we chrono boost that. On top of that, after our immortal, we cut worker production, leaving us at 32 workers, as well as starting 2 new gateways. So we go up to 6 gateways total, and we add another pylon. No more workers will be produced from this point on. Once our first chrono boost runs out, we want to immediately use chrono boost again to continue getting the fastest possible immortal out. I said chrono boost again to get the fastest possible immortal out. There we go. Good job, past Kevin. Keep on adding pylons to make sure you don't become supply blocked. And once your immortal finishes up, get the prism out. Also chrono boost that, of course. Once your warp gate or your gateways have transformed into warp gates, warp in 4 zealots. Just warp them wherever you see fit. Continue building pylons so you never become supply blocked. And the moment your prism is out, pick up your immortal. Pick up your immortal or just move command it across the map. Full wall with either a pylon or a gateway or a cybernetic. I'd say please wall off completely with a pylon. I think that is the superior way of doing it. Move across the map and continue warping in more and more zealots. So here we go, full wall. At this point, all you want to do is warp in pure zealots on this side of the map. Maybe 1 extra stalker, but never too many. And you just move your way to victory. As a benchmark, I would take 450, and we want to have let's say 15 zealots, 1 more warping in, 32 probes, 1 immortal, and a prism. This is the goal you want to be hitting. So practice this against the AI, and then maybe you can go to the second progression. But even without going to the second progression, I think this version of the build order, if executed properly, should be capable of killing anyone below 5k MMR. Welcome to the second progression. If you are here, it means that you officially don't suck balls anymore, or that you're a liar. You still suck a little bit, but you just wanted to see what the second progression was all about. Second progression starts fairly easy with a pylon on the low ground and a pylon scout. So rather than a gateway scout, we go for a pylon scout, blocking our opponent's natural. We have to send another probe down in order to build our gateway. Once we hit the other side of the map, we basically patrol our worker on our opponent's hatchery location to make sure that a hatchery can be built and force the location of the natural hatchery to be built on the third base, either over here or over here. I only recommend doing this on smaller maps, as otherwise it's hard and sometimes impossible to block your opponent's natural. Now, gateway goes down at 16 supply, gas at 17 supply. Just a very standard 1 gate expand build order. Just like in progression 1, we send 2 workers into gas the moment this gas ends up finishing up, and we get our nexus at 20 supply as well. After getting the nexus, make sure that you throw down the cybernetics core the moment that you have the money available, and probe harass with your probe on your opponent's mineral patches. This is an advanced technique. It basically, you want to stop your opponent's workers from mining from the close by patches. You right click and try to kind of bop them around. Keep your probe around. I'm not quite sure why I'm going back home. Guess because I didn't want to mess up the build order. So that's also a fine thing to do. Get a pylon in your main base after you build a couple of workers. And the moment your cybernetics core finishes, this is where the first major change is going to be made, except for the early pylon scout, of course. We're going to be starting an adept, which will be chrono boosted, as well as starting a warp gate here. With the adept, we go across the map and we will move it towards the unexpected side of the third base. So if your opponent has a third base over here, we move it to this side, the left side. If your opponent has a third base over here, we move it to the top side. So you never want to be in the in-between area. This can kind of give a surprise for your opponent, which is always nice. Now, here another advanced move. We throw down a robotics facility the moment we have the money available, but that does mean we don't have enough gas to start our stalker right away. We don't want our opponent to send in their overlord, and thus we start a zealot, pretending like we're building a second gateway unit. This will stop most Zerg players from sending in their overlord because they're afraid of it being a stalker. Once you have enough gas to start a stalker, you cancel the zealot, start the stalker, and your opponent will be none the wiser, and you will get your stalker out, which will help in denying any potential scouting from your opponent. Just as before, we want to add a couple of gateways, and we want to do that before the clock hits 54. So right now we want to add 3 extra gateways to bring the total up to 4. Then here comes the next little bit of a more advanced move. We're stopping worker production at 31 or 32, and we're pulling out of gas the moment we reach 100 gas. Start our immortal and chrono boost it. This will allow us to have full saturation on the natural and will allow us to get more gateways while not having to build more workers, and thus have a more efficient build order. The main units we're going to be warping in is zealots anyway. We add 2 more gateways and a pylon. And a pylon. There we go. Beautiful stuff. Once our warp gate finishes up, which is about to happen over here, we obviously want to warp in the first zealots. Do add 1 more gateway before that, so we're up to 7 gates already right now, and I start the prism the moment the immortal pops out. Make sure to sink all of your chrono boost into that, as you want these units to come out as fast as possible. Hide your zealots a little bit with the warp in. Make sure your opponent can see them with any type of overlords over here, or on some maps they might be on pillars, or if a link pops up, you don't want to show your zealots. That is fairly important. Prism goes out with the immortal in it. Keep warping in zealots, start moving across the map, and from this point on out, life is pretty much the same. Continue warping in from this time your 7 gateways, full wall this area with either a pylon or a gateway or however you want to wall it, and here you go. Now, one big change here is that rather than attacking into the natural you can attack into the third because that's where a lot of drones are going to be. So the Zerg will be forced to defend that third base location, which is very uncomfortable for Zerg, or the Zerg will lose all of their drones or a lot of mining time. So that's why I prefer this version a little bit. And yeah, this is the advanced version. So I would not recommend doing this unless you feel very comfortable with the first little progression that we have. All right, let's go into the execution. And the execution starts with the adepts. The way you want to do it is you want to shade towards the middle while threatening drones on the left side. Sometimes people will build an Evo chamber to block you, other times they will lose a drone. You can perhaps even try to kill one more Ling over here and maybe even be successful. Other times you won't be. It at least forces a minor drone pool away, which costs your opponent a little bit of minerals. And in case they continue sending drones from their main to the third, you can catch off that type of reinforcement line. So it's quite important. Once you arrive, there's a couple of important things. One is that your prism can't be sniped by queens. This is actually extremely important. And then the second part is it's important that you move in towards the third base. We see all the drones over there. So if we can just go over here and kill those drones, the game is pretty much won. Because this is 15 drones here. If we kill 15 drones, even if we don't kill our opponents, we've most likely won the game. Especially if you also end up killing the hatch. Another thing that's important is that if there's any overlords nearby, you can use a single stalker to try and chase these off and maybe accidentally supply block your opponent if he hasn't done that already himself. Another very important thing is that you don't lose your immortal to a Lynx around. It is very easy to let that happen, and it is absolutely vital to this push. I can't stress enough how vital it is that you don't lose the immortal. Make sure that your prism is nearby, not too far in the back. Once you're chasing the queens, your prism can be a little bit further forward. You can warp in zealots, or you can leave zealots around your immortal. If your immortal dies against the Lynx and roaches pop out, you're going to be in an absolute world of trouble. So please, please make sure that that doesn't happen. Once you've kept your immortal alive, try to split off zealots chasing individual units. It is a lot easier for a Zerg to kite in a massive group, but if there's 3 zealots chasing 1 queen here, 2 zealots chasing a couple of drones in the natural, a zealot chasing drones in the third base, and then roaches trying to kite away, the micro becomes a lot harder for the Zerg. Zealots without charge don't really connect well with queens and roaches, unless these queens and roaches aren't being microed. To be honest, even after you end up losing your immortal like an idiot, because let's face it, that's what's going to happen majority of the time anyway, either lose the immortal or the prism, or perhaps even both. Just continue A-moving zealots. Make sure that you're not using 6 zealots to chase a single roach with 2 HP, because that is a lot of waste of DPS. Instead, send 2 zealots after that roach, or 1 zealot after that roach. And then continue sending zealots to individual drones, like the split over here. Just like that, you managed to beat Iba, who's a 5.8k player. Or well, maybe even 6k, I have no clue. These young ones are so good, they improve so fast. And that's pretty much the build order here. I hope that helps. I'm looking forward to hearing all your great stories about stealing MMR from players 500-600 MMR above you. If you did enjoy this guide, don't forget to hit the like button. And please comment on this, share it with your friends. I know a lot of people always request guides. But then when I publish them, no one watches them. So it would be nice, you know, that every now and again when I do publish a guide, people also watch it. It's a win-win for both of us. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.